Well, hello there, and welcome to day 76 of A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. Today, I am taking my one available slot that isn't taken up by nominees for this year's Academy Awards or superhero films with a classic Academy Award winner, multiple Academy Award winner, with the 1981 classic Chariots of Fire. And this is one of those films that, as I mentioned with Zodiac, there has been so much build up to the point of watching this that now that I'm seeing it, it's one of those unfortunate situations where it could never live up to the anticipation, just like with Zodiac. That no matter how good it was, the culture around it and the import of its significance is greater than possibly the theatrical experience of what the cinematic experience contained within the film. So, of course, like most people, I have heard the Vangelis theme that is so in the cultural zeitgeist that I was quite shocked that it immediately came into it starts playing pretty much from the opening, well, a few scenes in, and so it was quite remarkable to sort of hear that and realise, oh, okay, so that's not something that was just part of the film and then later built this major musical, became a major piece of sort of music film history. It was always intention to be this important theme, just like the Rocky theme, and it is an interesting piece of British sports history, and again, it's one of those cases where I don't know a great deal about this. So it's set around the 1924 Great British Athletics team, who it's hard to just to sort of work out how best to discuss this, because again, this is a situation of this is an event of historic documenting, but it is still a film, and so it's hard to decide whether I should just outright say the conclusion, not wanting to spoil how the film, but as I've said with many of the other films that I have watched, this film in itself is, oh gosh, at this point it would be 40 years old. So I'm just going to jump in and say, so they won several gold and silver medals across the team, but it's not really about the winning, it's about the characters. And I think the challenge that I was initially having with the film is that I'm not really a sports film person. I'm interested in people, and I'm interested in people of history and even sports history who did great things, but the sport that they were involved with in itself, I'm not interested in the mechanics of it. But thankfully the film isn't really about that. It's not, there's only so much a film can be about the mechanics of running. The film is in essence about the characters and the stakes, and so that was something I really needed to make sure I was invested in. I mean, primarily we're following isn't it terrible? I've gone to such great efforts to learn their last names that their firsts are I'm talking Eric, is it Eric Abrams? Is that
Harold
right?
Abrams.
What was it?
Harold Abrams.
Harold Abrahams, who is this Jewish-born, he's a bit of a stick in the mud, someone who is sort of really struggling against the institutions around him. He comes from an immigrant father who he is desperately trying to stick it to the institutions of Britain, and prove himself as a runner, and that if he is a great runner, that can never be denied, no matter where his background, no matter what his religious beliefs, he is this great runner, and that's his objective in the film. And then you have Eric Liddell, who is this very religious Scotsman who was brought up in the British colonies in China, but really is dedicating himself to his religion and to wanting to preach abroad, but running is sort of the joint love, and so it's the struggle between his faith and dedication to his love and passion for the running. The film does a very interesting thing that I noted from Lawrence of Arabia, where, and I don't know if it was a trend for biopics of sort of that era, sort of 20th century, late 20th century grand biopics, but the film begins rather with the funeral of one of these four runners, two of which have so it was Abraham's funeral, and it is stated that Liddell has been dead for 30 years at the point of the film. And then we jump back from the funeral to go back to them training, and the film does do a lot of time jumping. So we start in 1972, and then we jump back to 1923 as they're training for the Olympics, and then we jump back to 1919 when we're sort of meeting the characters and when they're starting their journey. And we meet the other runners as Lord Lindsay, who's the third member, who is he's passionate about running, but he knows he's never going to be as great as the other two. And then we have Aubrey Montague, who's unfortunately he does have this strange role as the fourth. The one thing they give him as a character is he writes letters that are a narration device. But frankly, his role is the least of the four. And there are four main characters, are four runners, and with Liddell and Abrahams as our two lead actors. And as I say, it's an interesting piece of historical fiction. It really represents 1920s Britain in an interesting light. It's interesting to see that sort of post-war culture and what that looks like from these points of views. That you see people who are trying to achieve something and trying to build British culture through sport and through national representation, and in that respect, it is quite an interesting artifact. It's well represented. You get this really quite beautiful is possibly not quite the right word, but it's well represented. You get Cambridge, which Cambridge probably looks the same in 1924 as it does in 2021, but there is that sense of history to the building and the architecture, and it looks authentic. And then you go to the Highlands of Scotland, and again there is just this indomitable culture that's supposed to be ageless. So, you know, in 1981, in 2021, in 1924, these places are supposed to be timeless, and they are supposed to represent a core to British culture. And it's nice also to see Ian Holm playing the trainer Musubini, who though he doesn't have he is a supporting character. He is training Abrahams in preparing for the Olympics. You know, Ian Holmes is a great actor, and unfortunately passed last year. And again, it's even though he's not young by any stretch, he is, to see him in an earlier role. You know, going past Lord of the Rings, going to a time in which, you know, he's playing this, you know, the sort of, I suppose, what would be sort of the peak of his career, or one of the peaks of his career, and again, it's a really nice ensemble. And I was worried watching this that I would struggle to really identify these characters individually, but they do give them very distinctive personalities and distinctive stakes, and I did care by the end. As I say, the problem I have is this film has been circling for a long time. I've been aware of it for a long time. You know, this is one of the quintessential British sports movies that probably defines sports cinema. And of course, you know, musically, the relevance of that theme, or the, you know, it's probably part of a list of like top 100 themes of all time. I'm watching it. It is very good, and it is a very well made film. It looks great. It has good characters. I don't think it's not gonna be something I go away and go, oh, you know, Chariots of Fire redefined my cinema going experience. But then, you know, that's not likely to happen every day, in spite of doing this. But I did enjoy it, and I am glad to have seen it, and I appreciate now that its place, and of course it deserved its Oscars. You know, the best picture is, I mean, it's funny because I was looking at the other nominees, and this is an interesting side note about the history of film, but looking at the other Academy Award nominee best pictures, none of which I've heard. One, I think, other I had heard of, and the other had a name that rang a bell, but frankly they're not films that are hailed as necessary viewings to time. And it's funny, really, that's really what happens with cinema. That, you know, we can be talking about the Oscars of this year and all the films that are great, and the struggle between these films, and yet who's to say which ones will stand the test of time and actually will age and become part of cinema history. And again, you know, the costume design, it won for best original script. It's, and for music, of course. And it's great. It's a great film. And I'm glad to have seen it. It's just I think it's hard to not damn it with faint praise, I suppose, just by saying it is a good film. And again, as part of this series, it's hard not to just say, oh, it is another one amongst the films I've watched. But I'm glad to have seen it, and it's up there amongst sports films that I have seen. Anyway, if you could, please like this video. Go back through the history of my backlog of videos, and subscribe to the channel. I upload every day. If you click the bell, you'll get notifications of when new videos are being uploaded. The shorts option has disappeared off of my YouTube, So I was uploading a small video to say what film I would be watching that day, earlier in the day, in case people wanted to also watch that film. But that's disappeared. I don't know whether it's coming back or not. So if you do want to just know what film I'm going to be watching earlier in the day, follow me on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I post. I'll be posting what film per day. Thank you for joining me. Take care.